Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Nobody's in the front. What's going on? Welcome. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Ammad Sheikh. I'm the Director of Career Services at Virginia Military Institute. And it's my pleasure to have this wonderful panel joining us today. And we'll be talking about careers in cybersecurity and some of the skill set and tools that young folks need as they hit the workforce. So joining me today is Mr. Michael Banks, Security Engineering Manager, Amazon Web Services.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Tony Harris, Principal at Global Incident Preparedness and Response at Booz Allen Hamilton. And Mr. Ted Wagner, Vice President and the CISO, Enterprise Security with SAP National Security Services. How about a round of applause for our guest panelists today? So I have a few questions for you today, and you can chime in at any time. Let's talk about the bigger picture of this industry, cybersecurity. What does the future looks like? From outsider looking in, it seems that this job could be done from your basement on a computer. And is this job going to be shipped overseas like other jobs we have seen? These young people will be in the workforce for the next 40 years, if I do my math correctly. So I don't want them to be unemployed when they're 40-something. How do you see the bigger picture in this field, and what does that mean for young people today? Anybody want to take that on?
If I was to say one thing, it's going to be more prevalent, or it's going to be part of more teams that are not accustomed to having a cyber person with them. So when I first started in cyber 20 years ago, we were off in a basement or separated out. As a CISO now, I spend more time with non-cyber people, explaining what cyber is, working with business leaders, and answering questions about what is the impact to my business. I think we'll see more integration with adjacent teams, with business operations, because it impacts everything. It's not isolated back in a corner in a basement in a dark room someplace.
I'd like to add to that a bit, right? Based on what's happened the last 2 years with COVID. So you're not isolated, right? But in the basement. But we found it exceptionally important to embrace collaboration tools, to embrace video teleconferencing and the activities there. I'm delivering incident response services. So over the past couple of years, we've had quite a number of companies that have been impacted by ransomware. The entire company has been encrypted. And before COVID, that would be drop ship, you're out and you're on site and everybody's there and everybody's working at the facility. And now we're rebuilding companies remotely, right? So from 80-20. So most of the team is remote. Just the folks that have to go on site to touch systems and rebuild systems are going on site. So I think we're going to see a lot more cybersecurity moving into remote as we go forward, but you can't move there in the basement, right? You've got to be very collaborative. You've got to be in situations where you're working with your teams in a collaborative environment, you're communicating more. I got to tell you, over the last 2 years, my meeting numbers have increased by 300%, right? So you're meeting in a different way, in the new environment.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. I think, I sit in a security operations center as well, and we control more of the physical and logical aspects. So, with data centers, definitely in regions around the world, it takes people to go in the data centers and make some of the logical meetings and things that we do possible. And I think cybersecurity will be that overlay across disciplines, across domains, to where even artists might need cybersecurity. Experts at some point, maybe it's turning into an NFT, or actually doing the sale or the crypto behind it, the exchange or the purchase. So I think it'll be prevalent across all domains and all disciplines.
That's great. Higher ed today is highly diverse. An average age at a community college, for example, is near late 20s. People going to the workforce, then going to college, taking a break, to going to college, then going to grad school, maybe not. What about the responsibility for this industry how do you feel that it's going to attract women to this industry, highly diverse populations? Is there any burden of sort of attract the diverse population on the industry, or do you feel that it's more about students that need to just figure out what's available and just go for that?
I think it's joint, right? So it's important for community colleges to be supported in their cybersecurity programs and activities. I look at my career, right? First year was in community college. I decided, nope, not for me. I've got to get out of here. I went into the Navy. I spent time there. I thought I was stopping going to school, but I went to school for another year and a half in the Navy. But and then went to college, through the Navy and after that activity. So I came from a background where you couldn't afford that kind of going to that four-year college. It's extremely important to provide those services to the colleges. It's important for industry to reach out and bring in minority support and minority staff. And honestly, women are already being more representative in the field. Half the leaders on my team are women or minorities, so it's great.
Round of applause for that. How about that?
Yeah, I think the burden is definitely in a lot of different areas. Thankfully, at Amazon, we have really affinity groups, and we have 16 different affinity groups for affinities across the board. So there's women at Amazon that take certain initiatives, and even in cybersecurity, there are specific groups, women in cybersecurity, to where it's actually women attracting more women, but also employers and hiring managers and everything. Even from the way we hire, I've done like almost 300 or so interviews at Amazon, and one of the things we look at is, do we have the right construction? So we have, is there an opportunity for the loop construction to have women as part of it? Is it only male? Are there people of color on the loop? So we try to take those different initiatives, groups, but also even construction to not have a barrier to entry as well once you get to that point. So we try to do that in a multifaceted way across all verticals.
I would say the problem of cyber demands diversity of perspective, of thought, of the way you approach the problem, all of it. When you're looking at intrusion and trying to determine what happened, I need your view, which is, I hope, different from mine, because if it's just mine, I have a blind spot. I need the way you perceive the problem, and I need people that can work the problem, and I don't care if you have purple polka dots. If you come with skills, I will embrace you all day long.
That's great. Thank you very much. Moving into now maybe more of the student's responsibility. Obviously, GPA matters. You got to go to class, got to do your homework, get a good GPA. Besides the coursework, besides the in-classroom instruction, what other things young people can do to make themselves more attractive to cybersecurity?
I would say passion. When I came up through cyber, there was no academic program. We were all self-taught. And I think today, if you look at the folks that are here in the room, a lot of them have done a lot of self-study, right? That passion will drive you to success. And they'll come through in the interviews. They'll come through in your expertise when you're asking the questions. When we interview prospective employees, we go beyond what certificate do you have, what academic program you completed. Can you explain to me how you set up a firewall and determine what ports to open, what ports to close? And having ownership of that process.
Yeah, I've been in the field 25 years. It changes. I mean, every single year it changes. You have to love it, right? You have to want to go home, read about it. Set up labs in your house and study. And certifications are fantastic, right? They're really good to get, go after that, but that's a week, right? So you need to continue doing that work and just make sure you're doing something you love to do, because to be really good at this, you have to want to do it in your spare time, right? You have to love what you do. love reading about it, learning about it.
I think passion is definitely, definitely sustains. Biggest one for me and in my experience was people. And by, cousin to that is networking. I got into security because I went to, one of the extra credit opportunities one of the professors, put out there. But that, actually going to that networking, seeing a speaker, going up to the speaker afterward and say, hey, you need an intern? They asked me, can I code? And I'm like, yeah, I can code. And then that turned into an internship. And I didn't even know I wanted to do cybersecurity at that point. But going to that internship drove me to do incident response, which drove me to join the Army in a cybersecurity perspective as well. But I think the networking with people in which you go to, but also with your peers, because they might, be your next, foot in the door for the next organization. They might be your next employer. You might partner with them to actually do a startup. I think people are, especially in a college setting, are one of the most important things to take advantage of, because you never know what that'll turn into.
That's great. Could you talk a little bit about the role of internships? And I've been at this for a while, and oftentimes you have an internship, especially if it's unpaid. It takes away the young people that can't necessarily afford to have a summer without a job because they have to have this unpaid internship. But what are your thoughts on the role of internships? And what are some of the other ways they can sort of add a value in their resume? I'm assuming when you look at a resume, coursework is great, but maybe internship helps. What are the things that you look for on a resume that say, I got to call this person for an interview?
Cyber comps, right? I mean, it's a big deal for us, right? To see the cyber competitions that you guys are attending now. Understanding score at some of those competitions is good to put there. If you've won one, we want to know. Internships are it's an interview, right? The entire time you're there, you're learning and you're interviewing, and frankly, what we like to do, Buzell likes to do, with interns is that I think we get like a 80 to 90% hire rate out of our intern programs. So we're looking at those internships to bring in the best and brightest into the organization, work with them for months of the summer, and hopefully hire the folks on the way out. So, or bring them back for the next year to intern with us again. So.
Is that your strategy to recruit, which is offer them an internship, you get to see them for a whole summer or fall, and then most likely offer them a full-time?
It is for our intern program, and we try to do a summer program for that, and of course we do university hires as well. So even if we haven't interned with folks before, we'll hire them directly out of the university.
I would say it's a great opportunity for us to observe those candidates for an extended period of time. An interview, even if you have 2 or 3 interviews, they're very short, and maybe they stammer on a response, and you're not sure. But when you see an intern who comes in, they're before everyone else, they leave later, they learn more, they ask more questions. Moreover, you get a chance to see the intern, this very complex IT field of integration of technologies and how those complexities crash, when they conflict with one another. You can't replicate that in the best lab in your basement. So they get to see real world what those problems are and what we confront on a day-to-day basis. And if you see that energy start to bubble up, that's a great candidate.
Yeah, I think for interns, I guess 2 perspectives. The first is from an Amazon perspective. I had an intern last year, and I treat them as just as another member of the team. They have most of the permissions that a normal employee has, but other than that, we treat them as an employee. I give them the same tasks, and I push them just like I push the engineers that I have to, be better, do better, and I take it as a learning experience for them, but also myself with dealing with new people. But on the opposite end, as someone who's done an internship before, I find that as a valuable time, and I say to anyone, do as many internships as possible, even your freshman year. Every summer, try to do an internship because it gives you an opportunity to know what you like and don't like. It gives you ability to get the experience, which is critical in getting that job after school. But it also gives you ability to grow and again network with different employers, people, and Most of the time, if you do an internship and don't mess anything up, you'll probably get an offer out of it as well. So, I mean, it's a good opportunity to get a job by the time you graduate.
You talked about having an intern. So when you're looking at how they're performing, what are some of the skill set you're looking at? Obviously, the knowledge, the classroom experience is important. But what are some of the soft skills, perhaps, that you look at and say, this person, there's value there, I want to bring them back? How do you assess that, and what do you look for in that candidate?
Yeah, I mean, we build it into the team. So Amazon is a writing company. So, I mean, we evaluate, can they write? But in order to write, in order to do anything, you need to work with the team. So we have the, team stand-up. They're just another member, part of the team as well. So they do projects, they get the ability to code, do code reviews. It's all of the soft skills in combination with it. So since we're so customer focused, we bring them into customer meetings. They have the interaction and they have an ownership piece of that as well. So I think it's all important, and we build that into the evaluation piece of it as well.
One of the things we will always gravitate to is someone who likes to script. My security engineer manager says, I'm by nature a lazy person. I want to write a script that will do the execution instead of me doing it manually. I mean, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but someone that will take the time to follow some intellectual curiosity, figure out how they can build a script that works, do a little troubleshooting when it doesn't work initially, and fix it and make it work. And then take some feedback from a peer or one of the mentors to say, that looks really good. You have a great basis here. If you tweak it here and you change it over here, it's going to work much better. That's a great example of someone fitting in and being a contributor to the team.
And passion, motivation, proactive, right? So you run into a problem, you don't stop, right? You identify the problem is in front of you and find a way around it, find a way to figure it out, especially in the pen testing. It's a response hunt types of areas. We run into problems all the time. We have to find a way around them. And we are looking for data synthesis, right? So lots of information, lots of data, lots of input, and we have to, at some point, synthesize that into a final report or into a report of what we've done, an investigation report, a pen testing report, a fill-in-the-blank report. So it has to be synthesized into that report. So the ability to really kind of see lots of information, synthesize that into a readable, refined report is important.
Great. What about the role of certifications or graduate school? Is it undergrad degree suffices or certifications will do? What are you doing at your organizations, and what are you seeing the trends as far as certifications or graduate school is concerned?
So Booz Allen certifications are hugely important. It's tiered activity, but after you've been at Booz Allen a certain number of years, we give you $10,000 towards either education or certifications. We changed that a few years ago when understanding that we can't just spend our education dollars on just college education, right? We have to give our educated master's degree, bachelor's degree. We even have some PhDs, right? That they may be complete with that part of their lives, and they're ready to spend that towards certification. So certifications are covered in the educational benefit. So it's important to achieve them, important to learn, but like I said, you've got to practice them for the certifications to truly have an impact on your career.
And does that also include promotions? Is it more likely to get promoted, or?
It helps, right? But only so far as it helps you do your job better, right? So if someone without a certification is able to deliver the same level of quality and skill that is required of the position or the next position, then they'll be promoted.
So I graduated from BMI with an economics degree. I really didn't jumpstart my cyber career, but it provides an element of great data analysis understanding. But I have 3 certifications highlight how they impacted me. One, this is sort of just an aside, my last Microsoft certification was NT4. I got a Cisco CCNA, which don't put me on a router. I will break your router. But I understand the OSI model and networking because I worked hard to get that CCNA. It was one of the hardest certifications I got. So it was a lot of self-study, not a lot of hands-on, a little hands-on, but it enabled me to have a basic understanding of networking. My CSSP really reflects a lot of work experience. I was only enabled to get my CSSP because of working in so many cyber jobs. Yes, there was some self-study to get it at the end, but really the experience of working in cyber, understanding those key concepts. So certifications have a place. They reflect knowledge, their element of what you present, your credentials, how they impact your understanding of key skills will depend on the certification and what the motivation was for you to get it.
So this one's a bit controversy for me. So to preface, I have like a dozen certifications. And I think they definitely have a place, especially government. You know, you have to have certifications to operate on a network, things like that. Consultancies, contracting, because you have to demonstrate to your customers, you know, you're actually knowledgeable about the thing and you know how to do the thing. You know, doctors, lawyers, you know, those kind of like professions. I think a lot of the other jobs and skills, can you do the job? And I don't know that a certification can tell me that. But one of the things that can tell you that is your understanding of the fundamentals. You know, during the interview, a certification is not going to help you ace the interview. Understanding that concept or being able to demonstrate the concept on an interview might actually be the differentiator between you being hired or not. So we're not going to not hire you because you don't have a certification. Maybe you get that on the job, or maybe you get that down the line. But if you don't know the fundamental foundation of cybersecurity, or you know whatever industry or discipline you're doing, I'll take the person that doesn't have the cert but can do the job.
I'd like to add one more.
Please.
It depends on what the situation is for the certification. So sometimes that certification will get you the interview, right? Many times that certification is required to get you on a particular government contract or RFP. So from that perspective, they're absolutely, you know, they're door openers, right? But the other side of it is, you know, we want the education behind it as leaders of the teams that are running these capabilities, but those certifications are valued by many to open the door.
It's more of a starting place than an
Yeah, that's
end
right. That's right.
spot.
With your organizations, are you offering professional development as well that can sort of kickstart, or offering them certifications and things like that? Once these young people take on these jobs, what kind of support system is available within your organizations?
We're adopting new technology all the time. So, you know, there's a phrase, when you stop learning, you die. In cyber, you have to be a learner. You have to have intellectual curiosity. We are expecting that when we throw new technology at you, you're going to eat it up. We're going to provide the resources. We're going to give you the learning capabilities, whether it's in-person learning or if it's a computer-based training or whatever the resources, we're going to provide that to you. But like everything else, you have to go past that. In the ones that are successful, they're self-learners. It goes back to, give me a little bit of information, I will consume all of it and gather more.
So there's tons of resources, especially you know, at a larger organization. I mean, in terms of after you get the job, one of the things is we have internal, you know, certification. So the same in-person certification courses that we offer to you know, publicly, we have our engineers able to sit in on that as well. But additionally, we have things internal like, you know, Toastmasters. We have things like, internal, machine learning university to where it's curriculum. But even just chatting with your peers and learning from them is immensely, available. I know at least in the security organization, the individuals and engineers that wrote, VPC and some of the foundations of, AWS were able to, have, pass them in the hallway, them, drinking out of the Keurig or something. Having the conversation to learn from them, or even set up one-on-ones with, people above you or your peers. I mean, there's broadcasts to where it's like a, internal type YouTube thing to where you're sharing the knowledge and learning from an organization. And that's my personal litmus test for when it might be time to look from an organization when I stop learning. So, if you platform and there's nothing else to learn, you're doing the same thing day in, day out, maybe it's time to look or, find another team or opportunity to learn as well. But there's tons of resources out there and available in the organization, but even outside of the organization as well. But there's definitely the pipeline and support with the organization, the company itself to, help train the current employees as well.
Yeah, same at Booz Allen. We have a large learning management system that has self-paced courses for soft skills, for writing, for analytics work, for technical activities related to the field, and such thousands of self-learning courses. There are agreements in place with several universities to provide discounted support and training and certifications. Of course, the education funding behind that. And then if we have big pushes for a particular skill set or activity, like with AWS, we brought in AWS training for a large portion of our population, did the same thing with Splunk and other technologies and areas where we needed to build skill sets and expertise quickly, and we brought in skill sets. We've done that with several technologies.
I have one last fun question, and then I'll open it up to any questions that you may have. But what about the most common mistakes you feel the young people make at an internship, starting off their career? What to avoid? What you might have seen in person that somebody think, he or she should not do that. What have you seen, and what would you recommend to young people looking at internships and their very first job after college?
Mistakes are okay, right? We've probably gotten where we're at because we made a lot of mistakes on the way there and figured out how to not do them again. Doing the same mistake again is not. So where we found issues is not being able to take constructive criticism and to learn from that and to understand that we're doing this to kind of improve your ability to execute in some areas. But making mistakes is fine. Just try not to do the same thing over and over. Right.
Yeah, I would say one of the questions we ask commonly in interviews is provide an example where you made a mistake or you had an obstacle, and how did you overcome it? Because we want to understand how you respond to that shortcoming. And I think the other thing is it's okay to ask for help. We all know that you don't know. It's not a secret. The person that's only been there a year doesn't know everything. We already know that. But what we want to know is, are you willing to learn? Will you listen? God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should use it in that order.
Fair enough.
I think the biggest mistake I see is not taking the opportunities you have. No matter where you're at or organization you are, clocking in, doing your work, and clocking out is fine. But are you chatting with your peers? Are you taking advantage of the networking event that the organization might have, or the resources that they might have? If you're curious about a service or some kind of platform, and that team is down the hall, are you taking the opportunity to go chat with them? Ask, how is this made? Being inquisitive. One of our leadership principles, learn and be curious. We expect that from a lot of, entry level and even new people to the company. Are you learning and being curious? So I think sitting there having questions and not really asking about them or learning about people or, about why things are the way they are. Being inquisitive and being curious, I think, is a big mistake I see people make. Now, some leaders are able to push people out of bubbles and make people comfortable to, come out of that shell and, show that it's okay to ask questions or not to know things or, curious about this thing or, what'll happen if I press this button kind of thing. But if you go there, have the questions and leave and miss the opportunity, I think, that could be even more devastating of a mistake. And I think the quote that I'm definitely going to butcher here is you miss all the shots you don't take. So I think that's a big opportunity and big mistake I see a lot of interns and even newer people make.
Time flies when you're having fun. Any questions from the audience?
Your questions, please come up to the mics in the front here.
And you don't get any answers to the questions you don't ask.
You can line up behind folks, yeah.
So one of the biggest problems I've seen in this field is imposter syndrome. So starting off, how did you guys kind of get past that and then realize that I'm capable of doing my job and I'm capable of doing it well?
Great question. I mean, I think everyone feels it at some extent, no matter what they're doing or how long they've been doing it. My biggest way to get over that, I will attribute to the Army. I've been in the Army Reserves for like 11 years, but one of the things I remember early on in boot camp or even, ROTC at Officer Basic Course is even if it's rappelling from, a high tower or zip lining or climbing walls or jumping, trust falling, all the things, you have to trust the equipment, trust the people. So if I can trust the equipment to just know, it'll hold me, it'll do the things that I need to do, that mentality kept me going. So even if I feel I can't do something, I'm just going to trust the equipment, trust the process, and actually go for it. And I found that very reinforcing to be able to continue doing that.
Thank you.
I would just say a lot of my cyber experience is Army and Army Reserves, and because the Army Reserves needed me and gave me an opportunity to be exposed to a task that I wouldn't have otherwise been trusted to do, I had a chance to excel.
We call those stretch opportunities, right? So when your boss or when your leader starts to give you stretch opportunities, know it's coming, right? They're looking at you to bring you up to the next level, or to promote you to the next level. So those things are opportunities for like I said, it's okay to have a mistake, but those things are opportunities for you to excel and to show really show what you're made of.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm kind of short, so bear with me. So one question I have is, how do you make it through the ranks of, I guess, a cybersecurity job? So how do you go from an entry-level position, for instance, to like a manager or a CISO?
I'll talk about CISO because I wanted to be a CISO long before I became a CISO. I just saw it and I was like, I want to be an executive. I love cyber. This seems like the perfect match. It's a lot harder than it's not a dream like that. But mentors. I worked with a guy at the Army CERT named Rick Howard. Worked hard for him. He pressed me, he pushed me. I worked late hours for him. And then years later, I worked for him again. I was the manager of a commercial SOC, and he was the CISO. And he took another job, and he said, Ted should replace me. And that first CISO job is dependent upon someone saying, he's ready. And that, I still keep up with Rick. If you ever listen to CyberWire podcast, you'll hear a little bit of him. But it's that network, that relationship, someone trusting that you're ready to be stretched. And I've mentioned this before, that I love being around my cyber friends, my colleagues, my nerds. My wife thinks I'm the biggest nerd in the house. But when you become a CISO, you don't get to hang out with your cool friends anymore. You hang out with other business executives, and that's really the challenge of a CISO is, but all along the way is someone trusting in you. How do you build that trust?
So find a mentor and
Yes.
in the leadership, hopefully, and they're guiding you along the way.
And show them you will, when they ask you to jump, you bring your best game. When they ask to give you an assignment, you don't do what they just asked. You go past what they expect. You anticipate the questions they're going to ask and be prepared to answer them. That passion again.
I think in the realm of security, pun intended, be persistent. Like I mentioned, you make none of the shots, but all you need to make is one, so keep shooting. For me, my mentality is not a matter of if, but when, and then with who. So, if you're on a team and you want to do a thing, you want to get promoted or do a certain thing, and there's no space for you on that team, or they don't want you to do it on that team, there's another team that will value you, and that will work for you. I've experienced it myself. So be persistent, have that mentality of it's not a matter of if but when, and then find out who's going to allow you to do that, and keep shooting.
I want to make sure we stay on schedule, so you, sir, and then you, and then we hopefully call it a day.
As incorporated as all three of your companies are in this nation, and as high ranking as all three of you are in your corporations, I was curious as to the sort of development of other countries and your cooperation with them, with the knowledge and skills that you have gained in this state that we're in. Because I know AWS is expanding all over the world. And yeah, that's my question.
Can you rephrase the question for me real quick?
Yeah. So, how does your companies all provide services to help develop other countries and bring to them the capabilities ours has?
So I can speak to it directly. So NS2 was set up to support the U.S. federal government. SAP is a German-owned company, so there was a lot of work to set up NS2, where I work. But recently we've won contracts with the Australian Department of Defense, and we have work in Canada, and we're working to develop some projects in the United Kingdom. Because they see the value that the United States has brought in the realm of security, they're attracted to it. And so those countries I mentioned are part of the Five Eyes. In the Department of Defense, we call them the Five Eyes, our closest allies. It's easier to share among, there's obstacles, but it's easier to share. So I think as professionals, we want everyone's personal data to be protected. That's my perspective on it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, gents, thanks for taking the time today. So as someone who just recently landed a full-time cyber job after probably like 2 years of looking, I'm wondering, I feel like something that I've heard about a lot is the problem with people looking at entry-level cyber job postings and seeing, like what's the joke, like, do you need 10 years of CISP, like right out of college or whatever, like something ridiculous, that it's not a problem with the cyber or IT departments, it's a HR problem. And I'm wondering if you guys agree with that, and if so, do you think that companies are becoming more aware of it and trying to write job postings that speak more to those entry-level people who are applying for them?
I think it can be a problem. I think the approach that Amazon takes on that is twofold. One is internships that we offer, programs for that, and again, the interns that we do have typically will get an offer, assuming they meet that bar and perform. But in addition to that, there are pipelines and programs and initiatives that most organizations have, or at least Amazon has, that's designed for recent graduates, and we call it early career talent, that it doesn't have the expectation that you have a 10-year, CISP perspective, and it's set up and designed that way from the interview process and actually the interviewers themselves. So it is, I think, a problem in the industry sometimes, because I've seen those same job postings, when I was looking years ago as well. So I do think it is a problem, but I do think there are initiatives to try to combat that.
Everyone needs senior cybersecurity folks, and I think some of that is wishful thinking, right? And some of the recs that we're putting out there. But from a responding to junior recs, especially when your experience is college, right? We want to see details about the projects that you're working in the space. I don't just need to know what your GPA is, right? I want to see details about your projects. I want to see information about the clubs and activities and the things that you're doing that are work relevant, that are providing that experience and support. For some entry-level positions, if you're kind of moving from the bartender job at a college or whatever that is, that job that you get before you get into the career field, maybe you want to take a lower level role as a tier 1 SOC support person from a managed support provider, right? And maybe that's the way to do it, to kind of keep your resume moving in the direction you want to go and get some of that baseline experience.
I have a quick follow-up to that, actually. I've heard also that a entry-level cyber job is actually like a mid-level IT job. Do you agree with that as well, and that people should start looking maybe for like help desk stuff before they start looking at cyber stuff?
So I worked at help desk for about a year and a half. One of my best employees worked at help desk. The advice I gave my son he's on his second job was to start at help desk, because you learn troubleshooting, you understand the infrastructure. It's not the glamorous job, but you can learn a lot. So, and I think two things. One, we use terms that no one understands. Cyber terms no one else in the room understands. The HR department will come back and ask me what this means. Is that a high-level skill or is that a low-level skill? Second, the other thing I would say is the strong IT people gravitate to cyber. Maybe that's a little heady, but I think that's true.
From my the IR perspective, it's a combination of baseline skills that you have to be successful in incident response, right? Part of that's IT and system administration, some forensics background, pen testing potential background, or data analysis, and there's all the multiple small skills. You don't have to be an expert in any of them in a baseline or junior level role, but you have to have done them. So any of those feeder IT component or areas are great, right, for a first job and an activity and a way to kind of progress to a mid-level, potentially mid-level cybersecurity activity.
I think it can be, but it doesn't have to be. I think in some of the different generations, you might have worked with laptops and familiar with all the ins and outs, how to administrate it or do those things. And then you can perhaps start your discipline out of school. You already have the foundational level of knowledge. It's now about, can you demonstrate that on an interview, or can you do the job? I always come back to, do you have the fundamental knowledge to do it? If you were able to get that on your own through your own experiences, maybe I've been passionate about, computers for ages. I just never knew I wanted security. So when it was time for me to do a security job, I already taken apart computers, some not being able to put back together at the time doing it, but learning that over time.
Always take a picture.
Yes, taking a picture has definitely been immensely important, but going through that, understanding that, concept, if I'm able to explain that on an interview, already the manager is going to say this person at least, understands disaster recovery, those kind of things. But it doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Thanks.
Any final questions? Well, that concludes, I'm sorry, you have a question? No. Okay. This concludes our session. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank our panelists, Tony, Ted, Michael. Thank you very much for being here. It was very informative, and we'll see you out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Dr. Sheikh, for moderating this panel, and again, thank you to the panelists. We're actually a little ahead of time, so I don't know if dinner's ready yet or not, but we will be going back in the Hall of Valor, the big room out there, for dinner. We've purposely mixed up the seating for dinner so you can meet and network with people from other schools. Our panelists have told us how important it is to network, and even our speaker earlier, Dr. Trent, mentioned that as well. So yeah, we're forcing you to sit with new people and have conversations. You have your table assignment on the front of your name badge. So you'll meet folks from different schools. We're putting the employers, sprinkle them amongst the tables as well. After dinner, you'll hear from the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, and then you're going to get the competition instructions, very important, for tomorrow from Dr. Dave Raymond, Director of the Virginia Cyber Range. So we're well on our way into this event, and looking forward to great conversations over dinner. So we'll see you in the Hall of Valor. Thank you. And let's give another round of applause to our panel.